Hi, I'm Howard Ungerleider, and I'm here listening to Two Guys Talking Rush 2021. Let it be a good year for everyone.
Guys are talking rush two guys talking rush two guys are talking rush two guys are talking rush two guys.
And now, get ready for the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast with your hosts, John Kane and Dan Buxton. Hey folks, my name's John Kane, and this is the delightful Dan Buxton, and welcome to episode 23 of the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Dan.
Happy New Year. Let's say goodbye to that 2020 stuff. Goodbye. I never want to see you again. Terrible year. Goodbye.
Yeah, because, 2021 is turning out to be awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. We're just a few days in, and wow, I'm just, there's already people posting jokes about, I tried the 7-day trial of 2021, and I want to return it and get a refund. So,
I'm on board with that. Yeah.
We're in for a treat this year, I think.
Oh, man. It's incredible. Well, yeah. So any of our international fans are probably watching and or listening and wondering what we would mention on the episode or if we're going to reveal it. But you know what? We're politically neutral on the show, but we cannot ignore the chaos that is the United States right now.
Yeah, it's hard to miss right now. Yeah.
It's really hard to miss. It's hard not to at least acknowledge it. It's unnerving, and we hope for the best for our country and its people. And no matter what side you're on, we want to just chill. We just want to get through it. Life is hard enough, and we want to raise our families and
do our thing,
treat each other well, and all that. So that's where we're at on Two Guys Talking Rush. Again, this is not Two Guys Talking Seals and Crofts. This is Two Guys Talking the incredibly iconic Rush. So listen in, folks, and discover the best damn Rush podcast in the entire Solar Federation. Two Guys Talking Rush. Wow, Dan, another episode. We're at episode 23, and I was doing the math, which took me about 4 days. On how many episodes we've accumulated, and with our holiday episodes, our special bonus episodes, we're probably at near around 30 or just under 30. So we're doing good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's good. Mm-hmm. Our last episode was the 2112 episode. How'd you think that went? That the second part of that will be airing this weekend. We pre-record, but what'd you think of that?
I thought it came out great, and I had a blast personally. I love meeting fans more than anything. Also, Ari, I thought was a great guest, and he had really, really interesting things to say. We haven't had the chance to talk to a lot of filmmakers, so it's good. It's good to be able to get that kind of a perspective. I think the story you told about Neil's hat, where he filmed someone to be a stand-in for Neil and made him wear the hat, and then Neil refused to wear it also because he only wears it when he's drumming.
Yeah.
To me, that was classic. I can totally see that.
Yeah. No, definitely. His film Adventures of Power, which I'll bring up again later. I rewatched that again because I had watched it a while ago, and it's really a nice little heartfelt film about a very passionate air drummer.
Yes.
But I thought he did a good job on that. And Ari's a really nice guy, and he's been replugging that film because I think there's some money going to Music Cares and all that. So he's a really, really nice guy. And wow, we had Pete, the folks behind the Pieces of Eight cookbook, which was fun, and then Jeff Wagner, eight, and of course the mighty super Rush fan Jeff Wagner, who took us on.
That was something. I gotta say, that was quite something.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, if Jeff is listening, or any of our guests are listening, thank you for participating. But Jeff, boy, what a cool guy! And
Jeff, you're a madman, and we say that with respect. You are a madman, but that's something to strive for, in my opinion. So, good man.
He is a good man. And how were your holidays, Dan? Would you end up?
It was good. It was nice. I did way too many Zoom calls with family all over the world.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was mellow, and there's no problems. How about you?
Yeah, I think the same. Just a lot of Zooming, really low key, very mellow, and just really kind of. It was weird because typically the holidays are a little bit more chaotic for me, and this year we couldn't be as chaotic because of COVID. So I kind of like that. I guess I miss that about not being able to do that in the holidays. Is just like not do anything, not have to do anything. So I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that. But we hope everybody listening had a good holiday season, and we hope for the best for 2021, of course. And and today is January 8th, 2021. January 7th was yesterday, and it was the anniversary, 1-year anniversary of the passing of Neil Peart. And this may be odd, and hopefully appropriate, if we could just do a 10-second moment of silence for the mighty Neil Peart on a podcast. So maybe it's the first to ever be done. You good with that, Dan?
It's probably been done. But I support it.
All right, good. So starting now. Yeah, well, it's hard to believe that it's been 1 year. How are you reflecting upon this, Dan?
It's really funny because it's like in the time that we've been doing this podcast, COVID hit, and that's really what life has been for most of last year. And I could remember sort of thinking back to when he had passed away and feeling like, my God, that feels like a million years ago. Yesterday, which was the 1-year anniversary, I felt like it happened 5 minutes ago. It did not feel like a year has passed. But it's been it's been a crazy year, not like any other. And I haven't gotten past it at all. I think I'm still processing it in a lot of ways. Every time I listen to their music, it sort of reminds me he's not here anymore. Like I don't put it on thinking I'll put this on to honor Neil. I'm just like, oh yeah, Rush, just because I always listen to Rush. And then I'll put it on, and it's like, how is this guy not here anymore? How is this brilliant drumming that's just gone? How is that possible? How is this intellect gone?
Where's it all go?
Where does it go? Yeah, exactly. Yes, and I know we have the books and the records and and all of our memories and that sort of thing, but it really makes you think about how lucky you are to be on Earth at this time, at the same time they are, and that we could just, we could manage to see them and exist at the same time that they did. That, to me, is a privilege. A lot of the music that I listen to, I feel like it's a privilege to be around at the same time that it's happening, and that it's really just made the quality of my life better and that sort of thing. But I have not accepted the fact that he's gone yet at all, not one bit.
Well, yesterday I was on, and I want to thank RushCon and the leaders of RushCon very much for putting this together. Jillian Marjanovic and Eddie, I forget Eddie's last name, but they're two of the leaders of RushCon, and they put on a Rush Zoom panel for anybody that wanted to join in and to reflect on Neil, and some really great conversations came out of it. And I think one thing that I brought up, it seems as though now that Neil has passed, that Rush are becoming even bigger. They're becoming more part of the conversation than they ever have before. It's
Mhm.
sort of like exploding. And yeah, you're right. How lucky we were to be able to have seen them live. It'll be like, you know, 20 years from now, if hopefully we're still kicking, Dan, someone says, wow, you got to see Rush live.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I just imagine their myth and lore to grow and to expand as those albums and their legacy marinate in the world. But I'll tell you, after realizing, I mean, at the beginning of all this, when Neil did pass, it was definitely a major shock because no one really knew about it, but also a shock to the system that your favorite musical hero is gone.
Hmm.
Now, a year later, reacquainting myself with his passing and how he has been missed, or how he has been taken out of this equation, where there's just two left, right, of the band. I started to feel really guilty, and I felt guilty because he gave so much to his life's work in learning more about what he really, really, really wanted. Of course, he wanted to do masterful things like be a good writer and be the greatest drummer and the greatest writer and the greatest philosopher as he could be. But he also just wanted to be a dad and a husband, and he couldn't do it for a lot of reasons. I mean, he got it raw.
Right.
He got that stuff robbed from him with his daughters, his first wife and his daughter, and then now with his newest family, he couldn't be around it. There was an amazing Rolling Stone article that came out. I thought it was very well done. That came out yesterday, and it just reminded me. It's like, wow, I'm grieving Neil's passing as any Rush fan is, you know, across this planet. But, you know, what is it that I want from him? You know, he's already given it to me. You know, the poor guy couldn't even have a lengthy period of time to enjoy a walk, going to get lunch, average things that we take for granted. You know,
Right.
it was, in a way, it's sort of a burden for him to be so amazing at the things that he did. You know, he's so gifted. I mean, I think Neil loved what he did, and I think he knew deep down that what he did was revered so much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, it's like, shit, you know, I kind of feel bad that he just couldn't do average things that we get to do, like spend time with our kids and make lunches and hang out with them and be with our family for expense. He's like 2015, he retires, right? And then, you know, 3 years later, he's just gone, man, you know?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason he retired, you know, I mean, in addition to how he was doing physically and that sort of thing, was that he wanted to spend time with his family. I mean, he had, I don't know how old his daughter is now,
11.
but yeah, you know, and you know, it's, I mean, you know, when you think about what that man went through, and I mean, yes, it was over 20 years ago, and he got married again and had a new family and that sort of thing. But I mean, I've just, if I ever wanted anything from him, it was really just the opportunity to say to him, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Sure.
And I'm so sorry you had that experience. It would have broken me in half. And it would also be to say to him, I don't know how you went on. I don't know how you did it, but I am so grateful to you that you did. And I'm so happy for whatever happiness you got after that. I mean, I remember, I guess 11 years ago, you know, just reading an article about the band, and they said that he had gotten remarried and they just had this new baby. And when I read that, I was like, oh, thank God, you know, because I wished I could have sort of restored that for him. I wish I could have, you know, and this is not a guy I know. This is not someone I know personally.
Yeah.
But
there's a sadness around Neil.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be, because he's so successful. I mean, I think we aspire to be like him in some way, be successful at what we do, no matter what it is. And of course, he was successful at so many different, I mean, just the truest Renaissance man, you know. There aren't, and I said that last night in the panel, I said, you know, guys like Neil don't come along very often. I mean, and you know, thousands of years ago, these are the Leonardo da Vinci's, you know, these are the inventors, the thinking people, you know. So again, Two Guys Talking Rush, we feel so strongly about Neil's legacy, but we also feel for the family and the families around Neil and the people who are impacted on a personal level, not just a fan level. It's like we're fans. We don't know Neil. We didn't know Neil, but no matter what, it's left a huge gaping hole from all levels, in all areas. So I don't know.
Yeah, and one thing that I've always really wanted out of this show that we do is for it to be clear that we're doing this out of respect. We're doing this as a tribute. We're not trying to exploit the band. We're not trying to exploit what happened. And I would hate it if anyone thought that, because we're doing this completely because of how strongly we feel about this band.
That's true.
There's part of me that wishes a little bit that we had still been doing it when Neil was alive, so we would have maybe a little bit more. I don't know. For me personally, I kind of felt like doing it after he passed might get mistaken by some people as us trying to parachute in and and try to hitch ourselves to it somehow, when absolutely the opposite is true. But yeah, I mean, I hope people understand this for the tribute that it is, and I hope that people understand that we're doing this because of how much they meant to us, all three of them. And and that in a lot of ways, this was just a way for us to begin to process our feelings about him passing. I could go on forever, but
of course. No, of course. And I think there's a lot of fans that, there were a lot of tears shed last night in that panel. And it's incredible how Rush, not just Neil, but the entire band has impacted our lives. And it's a celebration. The show is a celebration of that. It's a celebration of Neil, but it's also a celebration of the band. And, we're right there with everybody on the topic of Neil. But anyway, in discussion of this show, right up front, we wanted to kind of pick out maybe a song that we felt, maybe it's not our favorite song, but it's a song that we really love the lyrics. And there's so many of them, we love the lyrics of them, but Dan's a writer. I consider myself a writer.
You're a writer.
On level, I have written things. Yes, I have. So what song do you feel, Dan, was that held lyrics to your level of writing, and that maybe even more so that impacted you in a certain way, lyrically, and just the writing in general?
Well, I mean, with the exception of maybe one or two songs, he was always on point. So everything he wrote lyrically had something to it.
Most definitely.
The song, the set of lyrics though that probably mean the most to me is that it's the bit in Something for Nothing on 2112. What you own is your own kingdom. I'll
read it for you. What you own is your own kingdom. What you do is your own glory. What you love is your own
power. What you live is your own story. That's it. Thank you. I've been repeating that to myself for years. And so, of course, now that I have to say it on a show, I blanked on it. I apologize. But I mean, that I took that so much to heart because I'm kind of an introverted person in a lot of ways. And I like to do things that are solitary. Most of my hobbies are solitary. I'm not a very outgoing person. And I had a lot of problems with that for a long time. I felt like I should be making an effort to be more like other people. And it just wasn't happening. I can't do it. I'm not like other people, I guess. And that bit of lyrics really sort of inspired me to be like, no, you are who you are. And that's better than fine. That's more than just fine. And every little thing that you do in your life, every little time you get over, every little victory, whatever, that's your glory. And, the people you love fuel you. Everything he said in there is, he summed up in 4 words, 4 lines, you know, if I had to put something on like my headstone or something like that, you know, he got it right there when I was 7 years old. And to this day, to me, those are really words to live by, more than just a good song or something like that. But the combination of those lyrics over that music with that arrangement at that moment in the song, to me, is just incredibly powerful and has just always made an impression and still gets me a little bit every time I hear it. So I would have to say that.
The following section is: in your head is the answer. Let it guide you along. Let your heart be the anchor and the beat of your song.
Yep, exactly. You know, I mean, it means a little more than just be yourself, dude. You know, that wouldn't
Go for
resonate
it.
quite
Yeah,
as
yeah.
go. You can. We believe in you, buddy. You know.
Yeah.
You know, it accomplishes that in ways that someone just talking to you can't. You know what I mean? There are a lot of musicians who I really respect who, you know, where the lyrics are just not that, you know, they're whatever. They don't inspire me in that way. They don't hit me on this level that I can relate to directly as something that applies directly to my life. You know, that does right there. So
yeah, the song explores the ideas of freedom and free will, which are common themes in Peart's lyrics. According to Peart, in his book Traveling Music, in the mid-'70s, the band was driving to a show in downtown LA at the Shrine Auditorium, and Neil noticed some graffiti splattered across the wall. Freedom isn't for free. And this song was adapted for that song. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad you picked that song, because it was really nice to kind of focus in on that and kind of tear it apart a little bit and see how, and what it meant to you and how it attached to you in a personal level. But you know, there's a lot to be identified in this song with you and to Neil. So there's a connectivity there. I mean, this is it. This is why people love it so much, is because we could just identify with these lyrics, man. It's like nothing like it, you know?
Well, like Neil Young is, you know, another Canadian Neil is someone whose lyrics I like very much. I think he's brilliant.
Oh yeah, me too.
They function in a very different way. Like they're a lot more, there's kind of a veil more over what he's saying, and you have to think about it a little more. Those lyrics, Rush lyrics, that's just direct. It's immediate understanding of like, wow, yes, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I mean. You know, but I don't mean to like say other people are doing it wrong or something like that. Just Neil Peart was just a unique talent in the way he could write and in the way he could articulate these feelings that a lot of us have a very hard time getting out something coherent about it, you know.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah,
but
very much.
I don't know what his process was. I don't know how hard or easy it was for him or whatever. I just imagine him being like, you know, like with like, you know, with like the quill pen, like blah blah blah. Yeah, there's another one. Blah 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 blah. There's another one, and it's all brilliant. It's just like Mozart, stacks of brilliance.
Yeah.
Where, you know, for me, I have to work for it more, and I really have to struggle to get words right and that sort of thing. I could be totally wrong about that, but that's how I hear it from him.
Yeah,
because he's a master, you know.
That's so true. Well, the song I chose was from the '85 Power Windows album, Marathon.
Yes.
And the lyrics depict, well, this is the first album that I was introduced into Rush, was Power Windows. I famously tell the story of how this local older sketchy dude, like the guy in Dazed and Confused, they like, well, you know, it's
all right. The
real seedy older dude that was hanging around the
I
the
keep getting older and they stay the same age.
I love that character. That guy was selling albums out of his Chevelle or whatever. And they were all picked over, but I grabbed Power Windows, and I was probably, you know, like 14, 15 years old. And anyway, the lyrics of Marathon depict how one would feel while running an actual marathon, but the meaning of the song is meant to use marathon as a metaphor for life, to say that life is full of obstacles and is all about achieving one's personal goals. Peart says in an '86 interview, it's about the triumph of time and a kind of message to myself. parenthetical because I think life is too short for all the things that I want to do. There's a self admonition saying that life is long enough. You can do a lot. Just don't burn yourself out too fast trying to do everything at once. Marathon is a song about individual goals and trying to achieve them. And it's also about the old Chinese proverb, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Yep.
You know, to me, that just, again, that speaks to me, especially now where, you know, when you're young, everything's wide open. You have plenty of time. You know, you hit 50 years old and it's like, oh, things are closing in a little bit, and you know, I gotta be productive. I talked to a friend today whose birthday is today. He's 44 years old. He goes, oh, I just feel like I gotta be more productive. It's like it's closing in on him. You know, he feels it. I'm like, dude, just, you know, chill out, you know, and one thing at a time. But you know, being productive, using your time wisely, not overdoing it so you get burned out, I thought is a beautiful theme. And I think in many ways it speaks truths about how Neil carried himself throughout his career. And just to read a few of the lyrics here, it's a great tune. Says your meters may overload, you can rest at the side of the road, you can miss a stride, but nobody gets a free ride. More than high performance, more than just a spark, more than just the bottom line or a lucky shot in the dark, in the long run. And then the bridge was like, you can do a lot in the lifetime if you don't burn out too fast. You can make the most of the distance. First, you need endurance. First, you've got to last. It's a beautiful song, and I love that tune. And you know, thank you very much, Neil, for writing it, and Rush for performing it. Well, back on track with our message of the show. And you know, remember folks, this show is hosted by fans for fans, and our listeners know that we are inclusive. Each week we try to mix it up with guests and good content. We want fans to join us on this magnificent journey. I want to thank all of our guests that were on our Two Guys Talking Rush holiday episode, which was, of course, the legendary filmmaker Ari Gold. Ari's won dozens of prizes for his films, including Student Oscar, Best Film at South by Southwest twice, Best Director at the American Cinematheque, ARPA, and many others. His films have screened at Sundance, Karlovy Vary, Rio, and hundreds of other festivals. Of course, Ari was on the show and we talked about his independent film, Adventures of Power. You could find more about Ari at arigoldfilms.com. We also had returning guest Brent Carpenter, Rush monitor engineer, and his partner in crime, Libby Gray, who's with Styx, of course, where they chatted with us about Rush and their involvement with the amazing new cookbook, Pieces of Eight, ATE. The Styx crew was proud to announce that they just finished work on this cookbook, and you can order the cookbook at styxworld.com. All proceeds go directly to the Styx crew and their families. Buy the cookbook, folks. If you love Styx and you love food, you can't go wrong here. Also, we had superfan Jeff Wagner, who joined us and brought us into his Rush man cave, and that was awesome. We had a good time. Doing
that was more of like a Rush castle. I think
was like
all it was missing was a moat around it.
Yeah.
Protected from, you know, evildoers.
Dude, he had like Rush pajamas. I mean, he had everything, you know. Like,
when I saw that he had put records and their covers on the ceiling, I was like, okay, this is a different category entirely. This man a line has been crossed, and I mean that in a good way.
Totally. We love Rush super fans, and we want every Rush super fan. If you think you're a Rush super fan, you better give us a call, okay, folks? You must. Please support sweetrelief.org. We have a lot of our shows have a running theme of Rush production, and sort of the behind the scenes people that made Rush what they were live, during their live performances, from lights to sound, concessions, whomever. This organization, sweetrelief.org, will help thousands in the music industry. Please go to sweetrelief.org and help sustain these folks during this very difficult time during COVID, where so many of our venues are shutting down, and so many that work tirelessly, not just with Rush, but with many other bands, to keep the show going on. So sweetrelief.org. Also, you can hear our podcast on TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Simplecast, and others. This show is recorded in video as well. So please check out our YouTube channel and click subscribe. A quick shout out to rushradio.org. You can find Rush Radio on the TuneIn app and at rushradio.org. Thank you, Ed Stenger at rushasaband.com. We love Rush as a Band, as well as Power Windows website 2112. Check them out. A quick shout out to the Mighty Why Not and their opening music for the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast. Again, Rush fans, we want to hear from you. If you have comments, suggestions, ideas, questions about the show, please submit to two guys talking rush at gmail.com. It's TWO guys talking rush at Gmail. We're always looking for super fans, so we really want super fans to come on. I absolutely love talking to fans of Rush.
Yes.
We want you on the show. We have plenty of space for you to come on and as a forum. So you can find us at twoguystalkingrush.com. That's our website, TWOguystalkingrush.com. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/2guystalkingrush. Twitter is twitter.com/2guystalk Rush. And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We spend money on the podcast, unfortunately. So if you feel generous, we receive no revenue for doing this podcast. However, it takes a small amount to keep it going. If you're interested in fueling our passion to bring you the most up-to-date and Rush news and awesome guests and content, check out our store, Two Guys Talking Rush store at twoguystalkingrush.com. You can get a coffee mug, a t-shirt, a button, a sticker, and other cool stuff. We also have a Patreon account, which can be located on our website. If you want to give 50 cents a month or $1 a month to help keep the Rush podcast going, please, we need your help a little bit anyway. Everything's expensive.
Yeah.
It's like nothing's for free. Right. Even freedom isn't for free.
Even freedom is not for free. Yeah, exactly.
Well, this week in Rush history, in 1977, Rush played the Coliseum in Corpus Christi, Texas on the All the World's a Stage tour. In 77, they played the Municipal Auditorium in San Antonio, Texas on the All the World's a Stage tour. In 78, they played the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago on the Farewell to Kings tour. In 79, the Canadian government named Rush Canada's official ambassadors of music, rightly so. In 86, Polygram Records and Lifetime Learning Systems released Rush to Creativity, an educational marketing campaign utilizing the lyrics from Power Windows, presented as a free motivational learning kit and distributed to every public school in America. Oh, I want to get that. I'm going to eBay that. In 92, Chronicles, the video collection, was certified gold by the RIAA. In 96, Rush began recording the Test for Echo album at Bearsville Studios. 2003, The Trees was heard on today's episode of That 70s Show, Dan's favorite show. Is it? Do you like that show?
Well, I'm thinking about Tanya Roberts.
Okay. In 2008, Permanent Waves 24-karat gold disc was reissued by Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs. The film Boogeyman 2 was released in 2008 with a Neil Peart Paragon poster hanging on a bedroom wall. The symbols he was working on back then, they kind of had the Paragon, they had edges to
right.
Yeah. Cool. 2016, Grace Under Pressure, Power Windows, and Hold Your Fire were reissued on 200-gram heavyweight vinyl and high-res digital audio. 2018, Geddy Lee's Big Beautiful Book of Bass was published. In 2020, Neil Peart passed away after a 3.5-year battle with brain cancer, glioblastoma.
Yeah.
R.I.P. NEP. So yeah, on today's episode, the theme is, and naturally so, we're so close to the year anniversary of Neil's passing. We are remembering Neil on this first anniversary of his passing with additional news, because there's been an outpouring all over the internet. I mean, it's really I can't think of any, maybe Elvis. I mean, who even people who don't even know Rush know of Neil and his passings. There's been a lot from various musical camps on how Neil has impacted them, from all the way up to David Grohl down to whomever. I mean, everybody, right, in the music industry. Well, 1 year ago on January 7th, 2020, Neil Peart passed away at the age of 67 after a 3-year battle with brain cancer. The general public did not become aware of this shocking news until 3 days later on the afternoon of Friday, January 10th, as reported in a CBC article and by other news outlets. Neil and his family managed to keep the illness private, so fans were completely blindsided by the tragic news. And I think blindsided is fair to
That's the
say.
word. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
the word.
I had absolutely no idea. I mean, who would? Did you have any notion of that at all?
The absolute last thing I expected.
Yeah.
Last thing I would have imagined.
Yeah. Well, looking back, Rush posted this official statement via social media shortly after the news broke. As a reminder, it is with broken hearts and the deepest sadness that we must share the terrible news that on Tuesday, our friend, soul brother, and bandmate of over 45 years, Neil, has lost his incredibly brave 3.5-year battle with brain cancer. We ask that friends, fans, and media alike understandably respect the family's need for privacy and peace at this extremely painful and difficult time. Those wishing to express their condolences can choose a cancer research group or charity of their choice and make a donation in Neil Peart's name. Rest in peace, brother. That must have been the most heartbreaking thing to have to do, is to put that
Brutal.
message up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an excerpt from that Rolling Stone article that I was just talking about that came out on January 7th. And it includes the following details about Neil's private memorial service, along with a mention that Lifeson was actually briefly hospitalized in March. I don't think a lot of people knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was sick. With Peart's passing, closely followed by a global catastrophe, it's been a dark and surreal year for his friends and family. In a world frozen in place, it's been hard to process grief. Quote, "It feels like it wasn't very long ago," says Lee. "There was more drama in the Rush camp too. Lifeson became terribly ill in March and was hospitalized for a few days and placed on oxygen. He tested negative for COVID-19, but positive for the flu. Though he did lose his sense of taste and smell while he was sick,
Wow.
Lifeson has since fully recovered." I had no idea.
I had no idea. Yeah.
Amazing.
They keep it tight.
Oh,
Those
man,
boys keep it tight.
That is so tight. I mean,
Mhm.
really. A planned private Toronto memorial for Peart had to be called off, but there was a small dinner with the band and friends in Los Angeles. And a formal memorial that was hosted by his widow weeks later. Quote, "Carrie picked a beautiful place overlooking the Pacific," says Doan Perry, the drummer for Jethro Tull. Quote, "It was a beautiful afternoon. It was a healing time for everyone. Carrie put together a wonderful slideshow of pictures going right back to when he was a boy." Some of Peart's friends, Scannell, Perry, Stuart Copeland, Prose collaborator Kevin Anderson, who was on the show, spoke in front of an audience that included his bandmates and other famous drummers like Taylor Hawkins of Foo Fighters, Red Hot Chili Peppers' Chad Smith, Danny Carey of Tool. In Copeland's speech, he noted that thanks to Peart, all of the drummers in attendance shared the indignity of meeting fans who tell them, "You're my second favorite drummer." I love Stuart Copeland.
They had to know. They had to know that.
I know. Do you like the Police out of?
I love the Police.
Yeah,
they're honestly they're one of the only bands from like the new wave scene that I feel like not just that the music was good, but the chops, my God, were amazing. And you could tell on Rush records made around that time that they were definitely inspired by those guys.
Love it.
There's a Yes record too called Drama that they made in 1980. That's like, okay, we're just give us all that Police stuff. We're just going to put it in here. I think like a lot of the prog guys had respect for them because Stuart Copeland in particular is just an amazing drummer. He's fantastic.
Yeah, we'd love to have. I'd love to have Stuart on the show. He's a fabulous musician, a really smart guy, and I managed to get to see the Police when they did that reunion tour, and it was awesome. Andy Summers' documentary, I think that's on Amazon Prime right now, is really good.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely worth checking out. I forget the title of it, but I recommend it. Yeah, good. No, the Police, great. So going back at the end of this, Olivia Peart, age 11, Neil's daughter, got up and talked about her dad.
Wow.
Quote, "She was wonderful," Perry says. She's really Neil's daughter, a really smart little girl. I'm hearing through the woodwork, as a side note, that there's a drum set in their living room, and she's playing drums and doing very well. So, man, that would be just incredible if she just went on and carried on her dad's legacy on some level. You know,
I'm not gonna put that on her.
no,
Those kinds
no.
of expectations.
I know. Olivia and
It's
her
like
mom.
little 11-year-old girl. Can you play as well as your dad, as Neil Peart? Can you do that? Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put that on her. That would be cruel.
Olivia and her mother are, of course, still struggling with the loss, compounded by pandemic-era isolation. The Canadian border has been largely closed for months, separating them from Peart's extended family. Quote, "Our lives were turned upside down when Neil died," says Nuttall. Neil's a widow who spent Christmas alone with her daughter. Quote, "And then 8 weeks later, we were alone at home together, and it's been tough. We both think about him every single day and talk about him every single day and miss him every single day." Through it all, Olivia is continuing her drum lessons. And, from Dan and myself at Two Guys Talking Rush, our sincerest and utmost condolences to the Peart family. Getty and Alex also talk about how Neil's passing affected their desire to continue playing music. Since Peart's passing, Lee and Lifeson have found little interest in picking up their instruments. Quote, "I love playing and I never ever wanted to stop," says Lifeson. During an emotional joint video call with Lee, Lifeson was in the studio where nearly a dozen gleaming guitars hung behind him. Quote, "And I thought one day when I'm just sitting around shitting my pants, I'll still want to play guitar." And that's kind of gone now. After he died, it just didn't seem important, but I think it'll come back. Quote, "For the longest time," says Lee, "I didn't have any heart to play. I still feel there's music in me, and there's music in Big Al, but there's no hurry to do any of that." I'm sure they'll just do it when they're ready,
And they're good and ready, and not a minute before. Yeah.
Even as they mourn their friend, Lee and Lifeson are adjusting to the idea that Rush 2 is gone. Quote, "That's finished, right? That's over," Lee says. "I still am very proud of what we did. I don't know what I'll do again in music, and I'm sure Al doesn't, whether it's together, apart, or whatever. But the music of Rush is always part of us, and I would never hesitate to play one of those songs in the right context. But at the same time, you have to give respect to what the three of us and Neil did together." End quote. The city of St. Catharines, Ontario, has issued a press release with updates on the status of the establishment of a commemorative work of art honoring the late Neil Peart. Here's a release. The past year, St. Catharines City Council, with the support of the community, voted to name the newly rebuilt pavilion at Lakeside Park after Neil Peart. The pavilion, now known as the Neil Peart Pavilion at Lakeside Park, honors Peart's connections to Lakeside Park, a place that inspired the lyrics to the famous Rush single of the same name. Council also established the Neil Peart Commemorative Task Force this past year with the objective to commission a public work of art that will commemorate Neil Peart's life and music. The task force, chaired by Dave DiRocco, who was on our show, has been meeting since last July, reviewing options for the type and location of a memorial, which will also be located in Lakeside Park. The procurement process is in progress, and a request for pre-qualifications will be issued within the next few days with the goal of selecting an artist and proposed design. The task force has also established a subcommittee to champion a full fundraising campaign, including an online donation portal that is set to launch in February. Yeah, I remember asking David and Chris, how will you honor Neil and what physical space? And it sounds like they're trying to find an artist and figure that out. They should contact Hugh Sign, man. I mean, it seems like Hugh, it's a no-brainer,
Hello. Yeah, right.
He might even do it for free.
You have to imagine, though, that they already thought of that, and that there may be something going on back channel that we'll never hear about to maybe get him. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that in talking about it, at least one of them didn't go, "How about Hugh Sign?"
Yeah, right.
Maybe the other one said no, but I have to imagine his name came up at least once.
Yeah. That seemed to be a smart choice, I think.
Yeah.
Neil Peart's widow, Carrie Nuttall, along with his bandmates and Rush manager Ray Daniels, talk about Peart's illness and final years in the new Rolling Stone interview. And this article, I recommend everybody reading it. It really, there's new information in there, which I think helps kind of put into context what Neil was going through in those final and during that final time of his life, during the end, I don't know what the right way to say it is, during that transition, let's say, from when he realized he was sick, and how his friends and family kind of embraced him and came together, and how Neil dealt with it in a very dignifying way. Neil didn't want any sympathy, or he didn't want anybody to feel bad for him, and that article really lets you know that, as it said in the article, he didn't want anybody singing Closer to the Heart outside of his bedroom window, groups of people. After the tour, as this comment is pulled out of the article, after the tour, when Peart wasn't working in his man cave, he volunteered for library time at Olivia's school, which I think is beautiful.
Wow.
Quote, Olivia was thrilled, says Nadal. She got to see Daddy at school all the time. At night, he'd come home and cook family dinners. Quote, he was living his life exactly the way he wanted for the first time in decades. Probably, she says, it was a very sweet, content time. And then the gods, or whatever you want to call it, snatched it all away. And that, to me, was the part of the article that made me feel guilty as a fan. Because it's like, just, he gave so much, man, to us.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave so much music to just millions of people, and so much of himself to millions of people, but he just didn't have enough time to give what he wanted to his own family. It's just like, it's devastating,
Well, he's had everything taken away from him twice, really, when you think about it. There was the first time, and then finally he had an opportunity to live the way he wanted to, and then same thing again. Yeah, it's just a shame.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
Well, Kiss drummer Eric Singer paid tribute to Neil Peart during a New Year's Eve concert for Kiss. Seems like Kiss is on tour for like on tour for like 20,
50 years.
The end of the road tour. It's like, okay. Well, former Neil Peart drum tech Lorne Wheaton, who's now with Kiss, he's a drum tech for Kiss. This past New Year's Eve, Kiss performed a live streamed Kiss 2020 goodbye concert from Dubai, and drummer Eric Singer gave a subtle tribute to the late Neil Peart during the show by including a Rush Starman sticker on his kit. And this tweet was from Lorne, of course, on Twitter. For the folks commenting on our friend Starman being on our bass drum Rezo heads, this was all Eric's idea. I was still grieving with the loss of my friend and boss Bubba. Eric Singer was a big fan of Neil Peart, and since I'm his tech, it's a tribute to me. The other sticker is a node to Kobe Bryant, I'm assuming.
Oh, cool.
Well, we, again, wrapping this up as we move on to our very special guests, whom we'll reveal in a moment. And Dan, you could say whatever closing, as we close out a year since the passing of one of the most significant forces, not just in rock and roll history, but literary history. There'll never be another Neil Peart. If I was a gambling man, I would say that there will never be a Neil Peart in the next 100 years. A band like Rush, it's done.
It's done. Yeah,
it's done. The juice has been extracted.
The juice is loose. Yeah.
The juice is loose. The lemon has been squeezed.
It has been fully squeezed. Yes.
And we love Rush fans. We love the Rush community. We love Rush, and my heart, and I know Dan's heart, goes out to the Peart family. So if anybody's listening and anybody cares, we mean that a lot. Dan, you want to close out this segment as we wrap that up?
Yeah. It's still hard for me to get my head around this. It's still hard for me to believe that this happened. But I have to thank Neil wherever he is for what he gave us. And I have to thank the other guys in the band and his family for allowing us to have the time with him that we did. And yes. I'm sorry that they couldn't have more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Thank you for giving so much of Neil to us, allowing him to be with us. Yeah. Well, there it is. So, we on Two Guys Talking Rush again try to give you the best content, the best in guests as we can. Dan and I are constantly working on getting good guests for the show. Again, this podcast is more about how Rush has impacted politics, society, culture, as best we can. We're trying to push the limits here. Yes, we like to examine songs and get into some of the, get into the musicianship and composition of the tunes, which are so important. But to us, Rush are great. It's almost like greater than that. Rush have grown so impactful that's sort of what makes Two Guys Talking Rush different. So on this week on Two Guys Talking Rush, we continue with the Behind the Lighted Stage series and speak to those who made Rush the extraordinary live band they so famously became. Today, Dan, unfortunately, you'll notice that Dan wasn't able to participate in this interview because he was too busy interviewing, what's that guy from Hall & Oates again? John Oates? Yeah, Oates. Yeah. You're too busy with his oats.
I was too busy with oats. Yeah.
But I was able to talk to the master pioneer light designer director who gave the band that magic sparkle on stage. His name is Howard Herns, Ungerleider, and what a super guy and just a very giving guest. The story goes that in the summer of 1974, Ungerleider was sent to Canada by his company ATI, American Talent International, to help a new band as they started touring regularly. That band was, of course, Rush. And ever since, Ungerleider played a crucial role in the success of their tours and production for almost 40 years. Yeah. I want to thank you, Howard Herns, Ungerleider, and welcome you to Two Guys Talking Rush. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, really well.
Awesome. And hanging in there, man, with all the challenges that we face as humanity faces, I can't complain,
That's it.
Lots of good things to be grateful for, where am I talking to you from? Where are you now, Howard?
I'm in my office, actually.
Oh, cool.
And I come in a couple times a week, and this is one of them. So it's perfect. I'm in Toronto.
Toronto, yes, good.
You can see in the background.
I can see it. That's it. That's awesome. So, as I was mentioned, and welcome to the podcast, Two Guys Talking Rush. Dan, because we usually record on Fridays. Dan couldn't be here today, but we'll record the front end of the show on Friday and kind of do our whirlwind of introductions and all that sort of thing. So, while this is being recorded now, there'll be a real proper introduction leading up to your interview. So, but obviously we'll get into who you are and all of that. But as I mentioned before, on the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast, we try our hardest to talk to people who sort of impacted the band, behind the scenes sort of people who shaped the band over time, and then we flip it and then we talk to people that have been affected by the band. So we try to dig deep in both ends of the spectrum and learn how, maybe in a lot of ways, what Rush has done on a greater scale, how the band's music and experiences have influenced people to start businesses, to write books, to create music, and you'd be surprised how huge that is. Rush have really transcended all expectations within many musical genres. So we love that about the band, and I'm sure you hear that a lot. But your nickname, and so it's Behind the Lighted Stage, and I guess you'd be considered the man who lit the stage.
Absolutely.
Rush,
no one else did.
And you have a nickname. It's Herns, Howard Herns. So how do you properly pronounce your last name?
Ungerleider.
Ungerleider. And what cultural origin is that?
Sort of an Austrian sort of, one of the Austrian Empire sort of vibe.
Do people commonly get your name incorrectly?
All the
time. I was going to say, yeah, definitely. So tell me in the audience, like, where are you from? Like, where'd you grow up as a kid, and what were you like I'm interested in that, because you went into this world of rock and roll. So, I was kind of a rock and roll kid, so who were you as a kid? Where'd you grow up, man?
Grew up in New York City. When I was very young, my parents were in the Bronx. Wow. And I went to school there for public school. And then I got shifted over when they moved to New Jersey, to a little town called Paramus, New Jersey, which was, close to New York, but over the Hudson River on the other side. So it was suburbia at the time.
Nice.
I went from the big city to a farm town.
And public school, private school kid, or
Well, it's all public school. I went
Yeah.
to finish my public schooling there, and junior high school and high school. Eventually went down to Monmouth College, which is now Monmouth University,
yeah.
in Long Branch, New Jersey, by the ocean, where I got in a hell of a lot of trouble.
What do you mean by that? Anything you'd like to disclose?
I got in a lot of trouble.
Party trouble, or like you were robbing banks?
Not that kind of trouble. But
Well, is this fair to say where rock and roll kind of entered your life? Seems like maybe that you're hanging out the wrong side of the tracks, listening to some interesting textures in music.
Yeah, I was actually I had my when I was in university, I had my own radio show.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was a radio show that happened at night, and the shift was from 11 till 3.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to play music that no one else would probably have played back then, which was excellent.
What were you spinning?
All sorts of stuff. I think Mind Flowers by the Ultimate Spinach. I was playing Jethro Tull, the Benefit album. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, totally.
I was spinning Clear Light, Mr. Blue, songs like that, and a lot of Pink Floyd.
Cool.
And The Who.
Yeah.
I was just having a good time.
Were you at all influenced by the Beatles, like everybody? Did you watch the Beatles on Ed Sullivan? Was that it for you? And when did rock and roll really kind of enter your life? Or did it? At any point at that time?
I think it really entered my life when I was at the Garrick Theater in New York City, watching
Right above the right above the Cafe A Go-Go.
Yeah, and I saw Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
Wow.
And they did the Absolutely Free album, and that was my first experience with which was pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
And it was fun. Later on, I was doing the Fillmore East quite a bit, 2nd Avenue and 6th Street, and saw some ridiculous shows. Like I saw the Woody Herman and his orchestra open up for Led Zeppelin in 1969.
Oh.
I saw Led Zeppelin open for Iron Butterfly.
Wow, incredible.
And they had a great. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say we have so much to thank Bill Graham for such an intentional diversification of lineups and music back then. I mean, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank Bill Graham for a lot of things, and Bill Graham hated Rush. He did.
Did he really? I've never heard that ever. What did he say about Rush? Can you remember any anecdotes? Or?
It's not what he said; it's what he did. Anytime Rush played for Bill Graham, he would put on another band on called Hush. He would just mess with them, He would have, he wouldn't give them sound checks. He would, one year he pushed the equipment off the back of the stage just to get rid of it because he didn't, I guess we weren't fast enough in getting off the stage for him. He was a very physical guy. He would get out there and brawl with the audience, and he was full on. But, Rush weren't one of his favorite bands. I don't know why. Later on, we sort of, figured it out, and we became friends with him. And then he died, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
that was sad.
it was really weird because there was a gentleman named Alan Bernstein. And Alan Bernstein, I guess, raised Bill Graham when he came over from Poland, escaping, whatever, he was running away from the war. And he came into New York City, and this guy, Alan Bernstein, was basically a surrogate father and raised him. And one day, just before that helicopter crash, I was at a function in New York where someone pointed me out to this gentleman. And he came up to me and he said, "Excuse me, son, do you know a young man named Bill Graham? And I said, yeah, I know him. He goes, I haven't seen him in years. Is he still around? I said, yeah, he is. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to be seeing him in a week. He said, can you give him this card for me and just tell him that Alan Bernstein said hello? And I said, okay, when I see him, I'll do that. And I remember I was on a Queensryche Metallica show. We were out in California, and I went up to Bill and I said, hey, Bill, I said, I got a card from this guy who told me that you would probably like to know that he's still around. And he goes, well, okay, let me have it. And I gave it the card, and his face sort of went a little red. And he went, is this man still alive? I go, yeah, he is. Maybe you'd like to give him a call, because I never knew the history until I read Bill's book later on that he basically raised them. He didn't tell me he raised them.
Yeah. Wow.
Kind of wild, huh?
That's very wild, man. Wow. I didn't realize. So well, the Phil Maurice closes in 70 or 71. So Rush, what, they play Winterland? Is that what where the gigs were?
Yeah. We played Winterland, the Cow Palace.
Yeah, the Cow Palace, right?
Oh yeah, we did shows for him, and that was. We ran into. We only had a few markets because of his hate for the band.
Yeah. Well, going back to you as a young individual, kind of absorbing this sort of rock and roll scene, what better venue to learn about rock and roll production as it is contained within a theater? Again, we owe so much to Bill Graham because of these things, which we take for granted, and contemporary rock and roll production, that you were there with lighting, with proper sound, with a theater setting for rock and roll exposition. Tickets were being taken. I mean, these are the early days of the organization of all this, right? I mean, what do you think about all that?
This is when tickets were, $6, $5, and you would you'd pick up a bunch of tickets and you would go, and it was an experience. Don't forget, back then there wasn't video on television yet, right. And the only place to see your favorite artists was live, and that was the place to see live artistry. And also, you can't forget those opaque projectors with the oils. For that was their original light show. It wasn't really a lot of lighting. It was a lot of backdrop oil, right?
Right.
Which was stunning. And, to see a band and their music played with people that were interpreting their music that not necessarily worked for the band at all, but just interpreted the music through oil and projectors was inspiring.
Oh, big time. Yeah. It's amazing to think how far we've come, and if you put it into the context of Rush and how far Rush had developed the artistry, the live experience of Rush, which is different than what's on the record, right? So when you put the two combined, it's like the Wizard of Oz. It's bigger than, So if you were to take the later Rush and put them back with the Bill Graham era, they wouldn't be able to be supported in that way. So a lot had transformed from the Bill Graham era to where we are now, and I like to look at those origins because I think fans and in general people don't realize how young the industry is within that time frame. It's 65 years old. When you think of rock and roll production,
it was the Wild West back then. It was, a lot of people were building it. Like we built it.
Yeah. From
the ground up at the time. And that's why I like Chip Monk so much, because he was one of the originators. You go back to when you were talking about Bill Hanley and all those people, and companies like TFA.
Yep.
I mean, they were around in the early days, and Bob C. and Bob Goddard, all those people were there building it production-wise. Pink Floyd always was the game changer. Anytime you would go to see a Pink Floyd show, it was amazing, And I went to Carnegie Hall in New York to see Pink Floyd when they did Metal.
Wow!
And it was fantastic the way their production. Back then, there wasn't a lot of production.
Right.
So when you would see genie towers on those hydraulic lifts coming off the ground with police car lights on it way back in the early 70s. It was pretty spectacular, especially followed by a concussion that would go off at a certain time when you least expect it.
Yeah.
They'd also have speakers in the seats, right, to do their quadraphonic sound, or it was even beyond that. It was more like surround sound that they first started doing. And I remember when the audience would walk in, you wouldn't know it, but they would pump murmurs into these speakers. So it sounded like the crowd was murmuring. And then as the more and more people came in, the louder the murmurs would become.
Wow.
And it was kind of
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're creating like an artificial environment, like a psychological effect, Yeah.
So, growing up, I'm a musician. So growing up as a young musician, and always had a band and wanted to.
What do you play? What do you play?
I play guitar,
Nice.
bass, piano, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I had a band back then, and I was trying to get him a recording contract. And when I was in university, I was on the student council, so we were in charge of bringing bands in to play concerts, and I met a lot of the people. Actually, the reason why I wound up with Rush is because of who I met in university. And when I got thrown out of university for being bad, I went on into New York and had to look for a job and used some of these people that I met to try to get references. And, they really didn't know me from a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
But, through the chain, and I have a lot of drive, and I stay with what I do. And I wanted to really get in somewhere. So there was this gentleman named Sean LaRoche who was affiliated with bands like The Who, and he had an office, and he would come down to the university with certain bands. So I scoped his office out, and I tried to have a meeting with him, but his secretary kept blowing me off. And I tried for 2.5 weeks until I was there so many times that I knew when she went for lunch, and she took her lunch break, because she actually told me, I get out of the office, I'm going out for lunch, and no one's allowed to be in here. Well, I went in one day after she had left, and I just walked beyond the desk into the office and found Sean LaRoche, and sort of startled him, but I sat down at his desk, and he said, who the hell are you? I said, Sean, I actually met you at Monmouth College, and I'm looking to get my band a recording contract. Well, he sort of set me straight and said, out of the 10,000 bands there are, maybe one would make it. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to be your band. So why don't you just learn about the industry before you come walking into my office and disturb me? Because you don't even know what the hell you're doing or anything about this business. The fact that you came here asking me for that. He goes, I have nothing to do with a record company. He said, but if you want to learn this business and you're serious, I'll give you some names that you can knock on some doors. And he did. He gave me a bunch of names, and he goes, here, you're on your own. He goes, one of these guys, just use my name. One of these guys, I'll listen to what you say. And I walked into a bunch of different companies, but one was American Talent International. It was called ATI at the time. It was on 888 7th Avenue, and went up to the 21st floor where they were and applied for a job with this guy named Jeff Franklin, who basically gave me a really hard time, but he said, you can come here and you can work delivering coffees and work in the mailroom. I'll pay you $50 a week. And if you don't like that, you don't have to take the job, but you better show up Monday at 9 a.m. So I did. And I wound up working my way through the ranks till I was a junior agent at ATI, and was booking bands, going around with bands. And I always, when I was in high school, I always took care of shows and, put lights together and, ran the shows for the school. And when I started being an agent and traveling with bands and saw some of the bands had really awful lighting, and I would make suggestions. Over time, I became like a consultant, slash agent. And then they weren't too happy with that at the agency because I was, doing work on the side with the bands. And so they basically said, listen, if you want to do this, we're about to sign a band from Canada, and they're going to be the next Led Zeppelin. And we want you to go up there and make sure they like us. And if you want to do that, then we'll put you on a plane up there. I said, well, how about if I don't want to do it? They go, well, you're fired. So I said, okay, I'll go.
That's
the next thing I knew, they sent me up to Rush. And I didn't know who they were when I arrived. And they said it was some bar band that was signing a contract that's going to be the next Led Zeppelin.
So you hadn't heard any tracks? You hadn't heard what they sound like at all?
I didn't know anything about them.
Well,
except the fact that they had me picked up, not Rush, the agency put me in some black limo, sent me to the Rush office. And they go, you just go in there, teach them how to tour. You're the tour manager. You'll go in there and you'll set it up and make sure they like us. So they didn't know I was even coming. And then
did you know how to teach someone how to tour at that point, or were you flying by the seat of your pants?
I was on so many tours, as a booking agent, and I traveled with bands like Deep Purple, Savoy Brown,
by that point,
Mac. I was with it was in the late June of '74 that I came to Toronto. But before that, I was on from 1971 till '74. I was on tours. I was with Blue Oyster Cult, and I was touring around with a lot of bands as an agent, right? So I got to settle the shows. I knew how to do the accounting, and I knew the logistics. That was easy for me. And I just took on the whole Rush operation at the time.
Describe and put into context what early touring was like in 1974 and before that. I mean, we kind of get a sense of what it's like now. It's a big package, systemized thing, but how do you even explain that, summarize?
Well, it wasn't a big package thing. And when you first started, you were an opening act. So a lot of the time, we opened for Uriah Heep when we first started with Rush. And we drove around in rental cars. We would do overnight 500 miles, sometimes overnight, 350 overnight. Some nights we did 700. It was a lot of driving. I did a lot of the driving, and then we shared the driving. We used to argue who got to drive, and then, if we didn't want to drive, someone would buy your shift. Driving shifts, right? And we traveled around in a rental car, and Liam and Ian Grandy and Jimmy Johnson would travel around in a truck, 5-ton, and they would haul the gear around, and I would be with the band in the rental car driving around, and having a good old time.
So you were talking about Mr. Daniels. So what happens then when you arrive? You introduce yourself to the.
I just go into the office, and there was a lady named Sheila Posner who was at the front desk, and I said, "Hi, I'm Howard Ungerleider. I'm from New York with ATI, and I'm here to become Rush's tour manager, and I need $10,000 and a hotel room, and I'll be here to take them on tour." Well, don't forget, it was June. They weren't going out till August. And they hadn't had a drummer because John Rutsey had left, so they were in between drummers.
Wow.
Geddy Lee will argue this with me, but Vic Wilson, who was there, confirmed the fact that, yes, you arrived in June. Geddy said, you didn't arrive. We had Neil before you arrived. And I said, no, you didn't. You were auditioning drummers, because I remember sitting through some of the auditions. They went through a lot of people before Neil came out of nowhere.
Yeah. So you come at a very pivotal time for the band. It's like if Rutsey was still there, your touring would have you could have predicted what was to come, right? I mean,
I never met Rutsey. He was gone. I arrived.
Wow.
So anyway, when I went in the office and I asked him for all this, I guess Sheila Posner sort of freaked out, and she went into, at the time it was Ray Daniels and Vic Wilson.
Right.
And they said, there's some guy from New York here. He's dressed in black. And he came here in a limo. And he's like, he's with ATI. And he said he needs $10,000 in a hotel room. What do I tell him? Now, what I didn't know is they didn't have that kind of money. And they weren't prepared for my arrival. So I was told that we'll get you the money eventually, but right now you'll stay with Vic over his house, and there'll be no hotel. And I'm like, oh, all right. The next thing I knew, I was on a couch next to a Saint Bernard in the basement
Oh
of
my
Vic
God.
Wilson's house for a while.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it wasn't easy in the beginning. It was like I got shifted around from Vic's house to Ray's house. Eventually, Getty was friends with the famous jazz pianist Oscar Peterson's son, Oscar Jr. And then Getty goes, listen, why don't you hang with Oscar Jr.? It'd be a lot more fun than hanging with Ray or Vic. And you can go over there and, you guys can have a good time. And he's got an extra couch in his living room you can crash on.
That's hilarious.
I hung with
man.
Oscar Peterson Jr. for about a bunch of weeks there. And I actually had a great time with him. And it was very interesting. Very interesting.
I mean, you really paid your dues, man. I mean, there's absolutely no question. You've dedicated so much of your life and career, and you learned along the way, and you became this very important and significant entity, to not just Rush, but to the industry. So I love the origin story so much within, this sort of landscape of music and production.
Two guys are talking, Rush two guys. Two guys are talking, Rush two guys are talking, Rush two guys are talking, Rush two guys.
Stay tuned for part 2 of the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast next week. That's not nice.
Live music inspires millions around the world, but the concerts we all enjoy wouldn't be possible without the countless crew members working behind the scenes. As COVID-19 puts concerts on pause, we want to extend a helping hand to the touring and venue crews who depend on shows to make a living. Crew Nation was created to do just that. Crew members are the backbone of the live music industry, and we hope you'll join us in supporting them through this temporary intermission until we can once again unite millions around the world through the power of live music. Crew Nation is powered by Music Forward Foundation, a charitable 501c3 organization that will be administering the fund. Live Nation has committed $10 million to Crew Nation, contributing an initial $5 million to the fund, then matching the next $5 million given by artists, fans, and employees dollar for dollar. Please support Crew Nation at www.livenationentertainment.com/Crew Nation.